Hey guys, I'm Nathan from Arms and Armor. I'm just taking a few minutes off from making stuff to talk to you guys today about Dane axes and how they fare against armor from the period when they were in use. Now these axes, we call Dane axes, Viking style fighting axes, were popular for several hundred years, let's say from the 8th century through the 11th century. They typically feature a really thin blade, right? These are more like a chef knife than an axe to cut down a tree with. And historically, we see that there are two kinds of blade profiles. This kind that is thin throughout the blade all the way to the edge, and another kind like this one, which has a reinforced cutting edge, right? Which you can see here. It gets thicker here at the edge. We see these archaeologically. They exist in the historical record. We don't know exactly why there were two kinds, but we have a pretty good idea, right? So a blade that is uniformly thin like this, that goes straight out to a fine edge, is going to be better at cutting, at slicing, right? Because that angle is more acute. An axe that has this reinforced edge has a less acute angle down to the cutting edge, right? So this essentially reinforces the cutting edge for impacts with resistant objects, right? So like on a wood axe, that's going to be hitting a very resistant object many times. You wouldn't want a blade this thin. It's not going to hold up against that kind of abuse. But on a chef knife or a meat cleaver, you do, right? You don't want a more obtuse angle because you're not wailing it against trees repeatedly, right? You want to slice really well. So today, I've set up this dummy Anglo-Saxon to represent a member of King Harold's army from the Battle of Hastings. And just for kicks, I'll be Norman with the Spongen helm, right? So the Normans, right, were descended from Vikings, 1066, William the Conqueror invades England, King Harold of the Anglo-Saxons tries to repel them, and the Bayeux tapestry shows tons of representations of this battle and the kind of armor that they were wearing. So today, I've got this piece of cloth armor, right, which is a piece that I've done tests on before. It's the one that Charles Lynn gave me. It's 24 layers of linen. This is based on one that's substantially later than the Battle of Hastings, but I think it's a reasonable interpretation of the kind of cloth armor that people wore historically. I'm going to put that on this heavy boxing bag, and I'm going to try and cut that cloth armor with this not reinforced axe and see what happens. I'm actually going to take off this helm so it doesn't fall off my head because it doesn't have a strap, and put on my safety glasses because safety third. All right, let's see what happens. So in cutting that, the point penetrated a little bit, but I didn't cut the whole thing, and this is quite sharp. I'm going to give it another try, and I'm going to try and use the point a bit more. So it didn't go through, right? This cloth armor worked pretty well, which is not to say that it couldn't go through, right? But it didn't in this case, and I don't know that this is exactly the kind of cloth armor that the Saxons were wearing. But I'd also like to try it against the kind of chainmail that we know that elites were wearing. So this is a piece flat riveted chainmail. It's a modern piece, but it's pretty good quality. We'll put it here. It looks kind of like a bishop's mantle, right? A piece of armor on a Saxon. And for this one, I'm going to use this reinforced bit axe. See how this does against that armor. Did not break the armor. Didn't go through the chainmail. didn't go through the cloth. But in both of these cases, you wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of it. Right? That would totally break your collarbone, break whatever. You probably could cut through cloth armor under all kinds of circumstances, and getting pummeled in maille is certainly a way to kill you. I'm going to suggest that I think that these types of axes, right, were really effective against people who had minimal armor. They cut like crazy. But if you were a knight of the period wearing a lot of armor, they probably weren't slicing off your armored limbs, right? Instead, you're hitting in the helmet, getting concussed, or cutting less armored parts of you. And King Harold's forces, which were primarily infantry, and the Anglo-Saxons usually called up men to fight, lots of them probably didn't have really great armor, which meant that when you got these big, badass Normans with these giant axes coming at you, they were a super dangerous weapon. So check out our axes. We're having a Merry Axemas sale for Christmas, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.